Welcome to the Shrewdness. We are so excited about this baseball-focused endeavor. As teased in prior episodes, we are doing 15 to 20-minute primers for each MLB team to prepare you for this 2025 season, to help you with your fantasy baseball drafts and future bets, or simply to improve your knowledge as the season begins. From the projected starters to the prospects, we will touch it all and give our shrewd takes on the key to their success. So sit back, take some notes, and enjoy the show.
Hello, Shrewdness fans. Welcome to our latest edition of our Major League Baseball primers leading up to the 2025 season. Dr. Lou is going to lead us through a team tonight. We are going to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays. Over to you, Lou. Take it away.
State. Who do they got for us?
America's hat. Not that we're trying to be offensive right now.
It's just funny.
Right. It's just kind of funny. Alrighty. So what we got here is the Toronto Blue Jays. They play, of course, in the AL East. And it is a very competitive AL East. It was very competitive last year. And they were projected to have 87 wins. They were expected to be a playoff team.
Yes, they were.
That was their Fangraphs. Their PECOTA was 88. It was a really tight projection. Their over-under was 86.5. And they did something down their legs and or in the bed. They only won 74 games and were kind of miserable. And there's some reasons why that ended up happening, which could potentially be correctable type processes. This year, they are Fangraphs 82, PECOTA 84.6, but their over-under is only 78.5. So they're only projecting 4 more wins than their actual from last year. And we'll get into why that probably is. So I start where they're probably at their best, and I just want to go through their actual lineup, and we can go through why they both have value and why they didn't have value. The first one I love to talk about is the stat folks' darling, Alejandro Kirk, the 26-year-old bowling ball catcher. If anybody's ever seen Alejandro Kirk, he is literally as wide as he is tall. His actual height, to be clear, is he's 5'8", which is relatively short for a major leaguer, but he weighs 111 kilograms. So those who don't remember,
2.2?
2.2.
I know.
240 pounds at 5'8". Yeah, 245 pounds at 5'8". And he looks every pound of that. In fact, it almost looks like they're kind of cheating him and giving him a little bit of extra on the thin side.
Ooh, Alejandro, did you slim down a little?
Yeah.
I'm in the best shape of my life at spring training.
So why am I super touting a 5'8", 245-pound catcher?
Because he rolls down the line. It's faster.
The dude walks. He is a walk master, and so all of the stat nerds love the fact that this dude just absolutely pulls in his OBP and keeps it very high. And he just tends to his best season was 2022. We had a 372 OBP, but even last year when he only hit 253, he still had a 319 OBP and projected out as a 2-WAR catcher, which a 2-WAR catcher will play. So he's a reasonable defensive catcher. He was an all-star and a silver slugger in 2022. He had 2 stints on the IL last year with hit by pitches, and so folks believe he's going to try to bounce back to his earlier form. Again, he's only 25, so he should project this year to his 26th year and hopefully have a better year. He had a definite down year from what people expected him to have. Then moving on to the star gem in the lineup, which is Vlad Guerrero Jr. He did have a father. You guys remember what his name was?
Vlad Guerrero Sr.
That's right. We all watch Vladimir Guerrero murder baseballs because we're old. But his son is really good. Yep. I was I don't pay enough attention to them when I was going through this. I was like, what? He's not like a plus glove. He's like a mediocre glove.
Yeah.
He had a 6.2 WAR, which puts him in the MVP type race. In fact, he was the 6th overall MVP candidate last year. He was their all-star representative. And for a first baseman, he was the silver slugger for first base. He hit 323. He had a 396 OBP, which is, of course, insane,
Wow.
and a 940 OPS with 30
Which is also
home runs.
insane.
Yeah.
I can't even. He even had 2 stolen bases. That dude had it all.
What's funny is he hasn't had a year as good as 2021, though, and that's the year that they keep waiting. He was pretty good last year.
He was essentially the same as 2021 last year.
Well, 48 homers. He's 18 away from his high. And that's what I'm saying. It's like they were expecting him to go Judge, like 55
He was MVP
plus.
too that year.
Yes.
But regardless, he was so good last year, though, any team would pay the bazillion dollars for 14 years for him.
And they will.
Yeah. And he can play first, and he can back up, play third. He actually, I think, prefers to play third, but they won't let him. He's probably a minus third baseman, but I think he likes to play third base. The only scuttlebutt is that he gave them a deadline for a contract extension, and they didn't meet it. And so now he's playing a little bit of hardball when it comes to, is he ever going to sign with them again? And if so, no hometown discounts anymore. He is Canadian. He was born there. His dad played in Canada.
Montreal.
Yep.
Yep. And so a lot of the stuff, I'm just looking at it right now, he is already making a lot of, I'm happy to go to the Yankees. I'm totally ready to play for anybody else who will pay me. And
anybody with lots of money, I'm happy to play there.
Exactly. And he is 25. So
That's the thing.
Basically Juan Soto.
That's the thing right there. And he just saw a $765 million contract go for 15 years. There's no way he's not thinking exactly like that. Why would you hometown discount that?
Yeah. No,
I'm doing the math, Dex. Did you say he hit 48 homers as a 22-year-old?
Yes, that is true. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and so did Bo Bichette. I think he was like not home runs, but I think he's a. I thought he won the batting title.
I'll get you on the Bo Bichette when we get to Bo Bichette. All right. Okay. So
that's crazy. So Vlad Jr. is going to hit
plus catcher,
third, fourth.
You have a super first baseman. Then you had Andres Jimenez, who was a elite defending second base shortstop guy. They got him from Cleveland on December 10th. He had 30 stolen bases. Like I said, elite defense. He was playable offensively, 252, 298, 638, and got signed to a monster. It was a trade, but they reworked him after the trade. They reworked his deal. He's getting like 12 mil a year for like the next 3 years.
That's nuts. I know there's a lot of people when that one happened, they were surprised because Cleveland was kind of building around him as that Omar Vizquel type shortstop, that's gold glove, platinum glove type defense. And then they just traded him. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I know Prue's got Cleveland coming up later, but it'll be interesting to hear from that side of it. But that's a pretty big signing for up the middle defense.
252, 298, 638 is like mid, as the kids say. It's fine. You probably would play that, but it's not somebody who's going to – his WAR is like mostly defense and stolen base derived. The fact that he hit 4 is not like because that offensively is not moving the needle.
Yeah, I think he's going to be playing second base, right, Lou?
That's my best understanding.
Because there's no way they're moving Bichette off because Bichette is also a really good shortstop.
So the next guy is their third baseman, then Ernie Clement. I was not familiar with his game.
No.
I was really surprised. He was a 2023 free agent signee, and last year had an amazing year as basically second year Toronto guy. He was a 1.0 WAR guy after they signed him from Oakland. And then last year, he threw down a 3.4, batting 263. He essentially never walked, but he had 12 home runs for third base and played excellent defense. So
you hate him. No walks.
284 does not play overall, but he must be excellent defensive player.
Wow. 263 batting average and 284 OBP. It's
insane.
He must have got seriously plunked a couple
5
times.
walks.
But for a 3.4 WAR with that kind of offensive numbers, I mean, he had 21 doubles, so that's going to help bump his numbers.
So funny thing, when I saw this name on here, Lou, I thought you're just messing with us to see if we'd catch that you just
paying
made up
attention.
A name. Yeah,
he's actually pretty good.
I know. I just never heard of him.
Yeah,
why would he be here.
Which
21
brings us
points.
to
21 points and 500 at bats is 10.5 walks
it's unbelievable.
on a
So
season. Wow.
Bo Bichette is where you have to, if you're gonna like say, all right, this 78.5, I think they're gonna go 500. How are they gonna go 500 and beat that over under? How it's all Bo Bichette. It's one of the most bizarre scenarios. Bo Bichette came up in 2019
Horrible.
and was pretty good, playable for the first 2 years of his career. And then starting in 2021, he has been a perennial all-star / down ballot MVP guy and amazing until last year. And then last year, he played in 81 games. He was below replacement level. His stats are, he hit 225 with a 277 OBP with 4 homers. That's the story in and of itself. He had multiple calf injuries, and after like the second or third one, they were just like, all right, just stop it. Go home, let this calf heal up. We're going to try again next year. I've seen articles that feel like his game is one that should recover, and he should go back to this all-star caliber player. If that happens, you go from somebody who was literally dragging down your win total last year to somebody who's worth 4 or 5 or maybe even in some world 6. He had a 5.8 WAR in 2021. So he by himself can bump your number 6 wins just from last year when you had a disappointing year. And probably that's where things went. You went from 86 to 79 win drop. And
if he's not contributing 5 WAR and it's negative instead, there's your 5 wins.
That's your guy. Is your 26-year-old like all-world right-handed shortstop? Is he going to come back to being all-world? If so, I think that they're an easy 500 club. I think that right there. If you want to bet on anybody, it's Bo Bichette. And so if you take the over, put a sprinkle on, them to win the East or the AL side for the World Series, or even to win the World Series. Do something along those lines, or make the playoffs, kind of a thing. But if you're going to be investing in Bo Bichette, just do the whole thing, because I think he's what's going to spearhead the whole team.
Yep, and I think he really is the key, and I think he is going to come back. I'm all in. So last year we redrafted a dynasty league that I'm a part of. He was my second round pick. That is how good this guy was. I had Julio Rodriguez in the first, and then I took Bo Bichette coming back in the second. And to have that type of season, that's all injuries, for a guy who had 191 hits, 189 hits, 175 hits, to then get 70 and only play half a season, that is not that player. This guy is a 300 hitter, 30 doubles, mid-20s homers, and I am all in on the comeback. So if you want to get the comeback player of the year, Bo Bichette, you could certainly do worse. This guy's got all the talent. He's 26. So he needs to be on the field and have calves at work.
So apparently, and I am not a smart man, they did monkey with the fences at Rogers Field.
Well, they
so
do
you might have
back her up.
You might have some altered, it says different heights, depths, and angles from the outfield walls. Left center is 368 from home plate. Right center is 359. Foul territory is reduced by 3,000 square feet, so it's easier to not get the foul pop-ups, basically.
I think 365 or 368 or whatever you said is a little shorter than most. Isn't it like 375
feel
to
like
385?
The goal was to get Vlad, Bo Bichette, and the next guy we're going to talk about, Anthony Santander, some degree of bonus for less pop-outs, more home runs, more offense. And it will make sense as we go through probably why that was done. Although I do think that is kind of janky to alter your park dimensions based upon your current lineup. I don't know. There should be some historic nature to you shouldn't move fences just because if you're your team. You should make a decision and stick with it.
Yeah, that is
regardless.
The pitching staff's like, whoa.
We get to the crown jewel of the offseason.
What I get to say?
Anthony Santander, 30-year-old right fielder, switch hitter from the Orioles. And he had what I thought was a better year than he had. Basically, let's just throw it all out there. He hit 44 home runs. Everything else was pretty mediocre, but he had 44 home runs, and he is a bear on ice skates out in right field. Okay. His
Love
WAR was 2.9, which is like kind of good, but also shockingly not that great for somebody who got signed for a 5-year.
I thought this would be 5 or 6 seeing 44 homers.
Yeah.
No, his average was 235. Like, and he only had a 308 OBP. He barely got on base. He just hit home runs, and he had a team that got on base a bunch, so he had a million RBIs.
Knocked. Yeah.
But he was fine.
Ice skates will bring you down on your WAR a little bit too.
Right.
So
I mean, if there's value there, if the park effects are what the park effects are. But I mean, from what I remember, in when we played the Orioles at Camden, left-handers get like a huge bump, right? Like their home run powers go up substantially. Right-handers have the problem. So he was getting, because he's going to be facing more right-hand pitching than left-handing pitching, he was getting a huge bump for the 44 home runs by being a left-hander there. And there's a lot of stadiums where he's not going to have that. I know the Royals were looking at him, and they offered him a reasonable contract. He got an unreasonable contract. If they can capitalize on him for the next 3 years, they probably get some value, but they got to pay him for 5. Is he going to have any value at 34 and 35? As we're doing this exercise, when we're looking at these folks, we see 34, 35-year-old players that just aren't usually that great.
Yeah.
Like, we see a lot of them, and they're like, yeah, they're probably fine. They can still play, but they're not leading teams. And you're paying him as a leading provider at his 34 and 35. I don't know if we got there with that, but it's value.
Getting ready to talk about one.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And then we had Dalton Varsho, who bizarrely had a 5 WAR. I guess where he got
Gold glove, baby.
That's right. He was a Gold Glover and center fielder. He was amazing outfielder. He's 28. He's an elite defensive player and had 18 home runs, but that was where he derived his offensive value because, again, he hit 214, 293 OBP. That's the list. You have a pretty that plays 18 home runs and elite defense. That's going to be your center fielder, and that's what a lot of teams are going to be okay with. That's what the Royals are okay with less home runs.
I was going to say, also has to cover now for Bear on Skates, Santander in right field. He's going to have to do even more Gold Gloving.
Yep.
So if you take Santander's 44 homers out of the lineup and you look up and down there from last year, I can see why they missed so bad on their over-under. They just didn't get on base.
Yep.
No.
4 dudes under 300 on base. That's terrible.
Miserably bad.
Especially Bichette's a career 340 on base.
Yeah.
And he did
and Springer
277.
had a 303, but let's not kid ourselves. That was 303 with a 220 average.
Yeah.
I mean, Springer is a shell of himself at 35.
And he's not stealing bags anymore. Right?
That's a 40-40 guy in the past, and now he's just a shell, man. It's kind of sad. I loved watching George Springer play all the way through Houston. And then he was good at the beginning of his Toronto days, too, and now he just got 8th in the lineup, poop stick.
He's 35.
He misses a lot of time. I mean, he just has random injuries because he's 35 throughout the year.
And he actually still plays in the outfield, unlike
last time he played a full season. I mean, one could argue in 23 he played 154 games. That's probably like full season, right?
Yeah.
But then that was like the high watermark since his he played a full 162 games in 2016. 8 years or 7-8 years since he played a true full season. Last year was 145. It's actually one of the higher numbers he's posted.
That's a full year for that kid.
But I mean, he played at a 1.1 WAR. I mean, he's like barely above. He is value added, but not by a ton. And he probably could be replaced by somebody who wasn't making.
I'm gonna guess.
Here we go.
18 to 20 million.
$24 million.
24. Wow.
Making $24 million. He signed a 6-year average $24 million contract for his age 31 through 36 seasons.
Well, it's worth the first few.
Good
That's
for
what they
him.
always get, man. The last couple of years on all these contracts are always terrible for the team. You just hope you get enough value in a World Series ring in the first 3 to 4 years of it. Who's this last guy? I've never even heard of this dude. I thought this was a closer in the Hall of Fame.
No, so
Willie Wagner.
This guy, they traded Houston for Kikuchi.
Kikuchi.
Chisholm will tell us about Kikuchi, who was a pitcher that they had. He did play for a cup of coffee last year. He's projected to make the team as a 26-year-old and hit well in his cup of coffee last year. They expect him to continue on and potentially even be a starter that's either plugged in, DH, or various defensive player. Give George Springer more DH time, right? And you could find ways to kind of move people around. They're hoping Will Wagner capitalizes on his cup of coffee last year. So, there's reasonable offensive projections from last year, some problems, with the expectation that most people have a reasonable chance to take a step forward. They are looking to be an elite offense. They moved basically the fences in and made it harder to pop out. They're trying for all offense. They're trying to go big bopper type stuff. And their staff is hot garbage. Up and down. There's a couple people that are worth noting, but for the most part, it's 80% not a thing. Okay?
Yeah.
I would say
they got 3 dudes and a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, but George Brett was a Hall of Famer. He doesn't play for the Royals right now, right?
I know. I'm just looking at him. I don't recognize 2 names, but
yeah,
3 of them are pretty consistent.
There's a lot of
good starters.
There's a lot of threes in the age category there.
Yes, a lot of starting with threes, including their ace, Kevin Gausman, who was 14-11 last year with a 3.83 ERA, 181 innings, 162, 1.221 WHIP. He was, but the issue is that he had a down year last year. He was like a 2-3 level starter, but he was third in Cy Young balloting in 2023. So the hope is that he returns to some degree of form and goes back to being the third in the Cy Young balloting type level guy that he was. What's not going to help that is moving the fences in, obviously, right? Next guy was Chris Bassett, who's 35 and pitched below replacement level in 31 starts. He had a 1.462 whip, so I can tell you right now, he's that guy who walks everybody, miserably walking everybody who gets up there.
I got a funny story for Chris Bassett.
Real quick
one for spring training. So apparently the Toronto Blue Jays have a fantasy football team, and the last place person has to be the bat boy at the first spring training game.
He was that guy?
So Chris Bassett's out there with it's Big Loser or something on the back, and he's just wearing a little bat boy hat and sitting on the bucket. Yeah, so kind of funny.
As the old guy on the team, that's awesome.
Loser in real life, loser in fantasy.
Right. He doesn't listen to the podcast. He needs some Shrewdness help for his draft prep next year.
He did strike out 168 on 171 innings. That's not bad.
Yeah, he's not normally a 1.46 whip guy. I mean, he's generally a pretty consistent starter. You could certainly do worse. He's a 3 guy across most of the league. Most teams.
That's in there. If they do bring in the fences, or since they did bring in the fences, the 1.46 is not going to translate well.
No.
But runners on with short fences, that equals bad.
Yeah.
So the next guy is near and dear to old Dex's heart. Former
Jose Barrios.
Yeah, former Hyper Twinkie, who was a multi-year All-Star and a down ballot Cy Young candidate for much of his career, who ultimately ended up for the last 4 years with Toronto, 27 through age 30.
Yeah.
And he was good. Actually, I would say he was legitimately a good pitcher last year. In fact, it was his best year or one of his better years since he joined Toronto, and has kind of stabilized out as a reasonable pitcher. He knocked out a 2.2 WAR with a 3.6 ERA. He was a workhorse with 192 innings. He's a little crafty. He doesn't quite get that 1-to-1 strikeout ratio with 153 strikeouts, but a 1.154 WHIP. Jose Barrios is a reasonable starter.
That's right.
And then they have this. Their 4 is a little bit over his skis potentially. He went from no starts whatsoever to 2/3 of a year last year, and pitched reasonably well. That's his WAR was only 1.6, but that is because largely usage. Like, he came up later, but he had a 3.3 ERA and a 0.926 WHIP. Ultimately ended up.
What's the guy you're talking about? What's his name?
Oh, sorry, Bowden Francis.
Bowden Francis.
He's 28-year-old right-hander who came up last year. He is early on in their system. Someone to maybe take a flyer on, but there's just not really proven at this point.
.926 whip and 100
Will
innings.
play.
That's
Will play. But again,
solid.
this is this real? Is this, fool's gold? It looks real.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we'll see. I don't have a lot on why he is relatively as valuable as he was last year. And then their fifth starter is a warm body, Yariel Rodriguez. They signed him as a free agent from Cuba earlier this year. Was 4.47 ERA. He came in late in the season, did pitch for them, pitched a few games, was mediocre.
I see 40 walks in 86 innings.
Yeah, it's we'll see. So what they did to try to fix that was they went out and spent $10 million on 1 year. I think it was 10. Did I have my number right?
Looks like he signed a 5-year, $32 million contract.
Deal. What? No.
Yeah, 2024 season. So last year. That's a lot of money on a random ass guy.
I was looking at Max Scherzer.
That's a lot of walks, but only a 1.31 whip. So he must not give up hits. He must have some good stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be in the rotation. Yeah, go to Max.
So Max Scherzer at 40 years of age was signed February 4th. And they gave him a 1 year, $15.5 million. Let's see if you still got it, son. We're going to win a World Series with all of our talent.
Yeah.
He was with Texas last year and still getting paid by the Mets.
It's always good when other teams are paying you to beat them.
Yeah. So he's still getting paid, but then he's still getting paid, right? He's still getting $15.5 million. That's a lot of money. That's a lot more money than the Royals would have paid basically anybody to pitch at 40 for whatever reason. It's the open checkbook with some of these contracts just kind of is mind-boggling for Toronto. I don't understand where they're coming with this. Anyways, he was 0.4 WAR, 3.95 ERA, and 9 starts. He must have been somewhat injured last year. I can't quite remember exactly what happened, but he was fine. But he's 40.
He only pitched 9 games last season.
Yeah.
He couldn't have been too fine. But I think him and Jacob deGrom were just he had back surgery. That's what he had.
Yeah.
But him and deGrom were just golfing, man. They were hanging out doing the Anthony Davis street clothes version of getting paid, and they were getting a ton. But I don't know. In fantasy perspective, maybe last round pick. I'm not spending money on Max Scherzer this year.
Well, he can easily take over Yariel Rodriguez's spot.
That's exactly right. He's certainly the 5th starter.
And he might push up into Chris Bassett was just not super great. So I could see him moving up in the rotation. Especially if somebody struggles. I don't see a lot of dominance in this starting pitching, and I definitely see some long in the tooth ages for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. 192, 181 innings from a 34-year-old in Gossman last year. That's a red flag in my fantasy book.
Yeah, I think this is our 3rd team we've done in the East out of 4. We haven't done the Yankees yet. And looking at these starting rotations, they're a decade more than both. I guess Baltimore had a couple old dudes, but they also had a couple young dudes. There's not a young dude in this rotation.
No, nobody who's Yariel Rodriguez is the only person who's prime age. Everybody else is either peaking past prime or actually far on the back hill side of this stuff. So what they did to try to fix all this was they went out and they signed Jeff Hoffman, who is 32, but he was dominant as the Phillies closer last year, or one of Phillies closers. He had 10 saves. But he was a dominant pitcher. So he's the setup guy who got to close sometimes.
Yeah, he had to have been a setup guy.
But he was dominant. He was 66 innings pitched, 89 strikeouts, 0.965 whip with a 2.17 ERA. He's 32, though. So, sure, you hope he's still got it. He's got enough in the tank to continue to get better or at least hold. But they obviously signed that guy to be their closer. There's no question. Their expectation is he's got the closer role.
No, I think they have to because, obviously Jordan Romano was not there, is not there. Kind of swapped spots, it looks like. So Romano's over in Philly. They're taking a flyer on him.
And they signed him for a 3-year, per year contract.
Yeah. I think I'd rather have Hoffman, I think.
No, that is Hoffman. That's Hoffman's.
Oh, I know. I thought, Romano went to Philly, though. That's kind of funny. They swapped places.
They saw something in him.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Anybody else of note in the pen?
Not really. Everybody
Chad
else
Green's
is
good. He's had some good seasons.
It's fine. I mean, he's a good setup guy, reasonable.
Yeah.
They traded for Nick Sandlin, who wasn't even super great, but they got him to kind of bolster up the pen. Everybody else is absolutely journeyman level. We're going to kind of snot and shoelaces this, put it all together.
All right. Give us some prospects.
Everything prospect-wise, and looking, there's a chance you might see a position player, though highly unlikely. They feel like they have a lot of their offensive numbers stacked. Who you might see is this guy, and Dexter, you can probably comment on it because I've just seen a lot of stuff on Ricky Tiedemann.
Absolutely.
He's a left-hand pitcher. He's actually, I think, relatively high in A-ball with the potential that people are expecting he may come up and kind of give them a boost in the arm.
Yeah, the problem is he had Tommy John in summer last year. So he's not pitching this year. He's not coming up he won't pitch till 2026, and then he'll be on innings, limits, and all that crap. But the dude is a freak. I know, he's not healthy this year. He's not worth talking about because he won't be in the rotation this year or next year, really. And maybe after the All-Star break in 2026.
Yeah, 6'4", 220, left-handed pitcher out of Huntington Beach, California.
Yeah. So high hopes, but that's the thing with these guys. When some of these pitchers, they get Tommy John, and they're out for 2 years. In our Philly primer, we're talking about Andrew Painter. Same kind of gig, man. He's been on the doorstep forever just trying to get on the bump. But sometimes it's hard to do. So Tiedemann's the same thing for Toronto. All the talent in the world, throws hard, lefty. But, yeah, maybe 2026, man.
They could use some help because they've got some aging starters that are not going to hold up that many more years.
No, I feel like for sure they're going to be in the trade market come July, right? If they're in the race and doing well or on the verge, they're going to be trying to scoop somebody. So they could be ripe for the pickings. I mean, maybe Sonny Gray ends up going there from the Cardinals because they just need to offload it. And boy, would he look good on this team. Wouldn't he? He'd slot him
in. A shot in the arm, a little bit of youth.
I mean, Sonny Gray is not youthful, but
he's not.
Good.
Yeah, 30. I guess he's not that young.
He's early 30s, but regardless. All right, they got any bats coming in, Lou?
Not really. Everybody else was, from what I can tell, relatively not available. And I don't think they particularly have room for anybody right now unless they absolutely rake and they are forced. But, I mean, they tend to – it looks like they have either they're so committed financially or all these folks that are not – if they're not a financial commitment, they're prime 26, 28. They're expecting them to hold their weight this year. It would require a complete meltdown. Because they're not okay. I mean, just go through the list. They're not moving Alejandro Kirk out of his spot. Vlad G not moving it. Andres Gimenez, they just gave up draft capital. They want him to start, right?
Yep.
Ernie Clement, I just said that dude had a great year. Not a good chance that they were going to move him out of that spot. It would take something pretty impressive. Bo Bichette not going. Anthony Santerre not going. You have a Gold Glover in center. He's not moving. George Springer's making bazillion dollars. They're going to give him at least one more year.
Yep.
And the only other spot is the Will Wagner, but he had a really good cup of coffee last year, and I think it's going to take a little bit to displace him. Somebody would have to really rake. So I don't think everybody else is going to be bench role players. You might see somebody come up, but I don't think they're going to really be moving any of these people off of spots. Yeah. So I wouldn't particularly bank on that being a real thing. I think they're more likely to package people to try to ice down a superstar if they get close to being effective and moving towards the playoffs.
It seems like from your rundown, the team does believe this is a playoff team.
Oh, they absolutely do. And they're over under 78.5.
Yeah, I think, man, so where are you at on that? That's kind of my next question leading you
into
it.
I've already potentially put a unit or two on the ones as I've been going through that I felt I like where this is going. I don't like, I'm on the under, I'm on the over. This one, I was pretty neutral. I think what I'm expecting is I'm with you that I believe in the Bo Bichette turnaround. And that we're going to get a ton of wins out of him from literal negative last year. And I think there's a strong likelihood that they're so mortgaged to win now. They have to win that
This is it.
They're going to dump Tiedemann and prospects. They're going to grab somebody at the deadline if they're anywhere remotely close, and they just want to get in the dance and play. Or they could even easily come out of the gates, hit a bazillion home runs, and like be one of those teams that just hard charges out of the gates and coast to like a reasonable record. And then they could be like last year and like suck. But I think I would bet on the Bo Bichette. They are going to hit over. They're going to get at least to 500. They're going to be fighting in one of those places at the end of the year. I like them at like 81 to 84 wins. They're outside chance of 90. And then if it's like last year and we have the same kind of scenario, there's going to be an underwhelming 73, 74 win team and just millions of dollars pissed away. So
Yeah, because Vlad's gone after this year, and that seems to be pretty clear.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
I mean, I guess they could be the one to sign them for this massive Juan Soto deal, but I do not see that.
well, they're so mortgaged on everybody. It's unreal. They're spending so much money on so many people that like I just don't know how you spend that money. I don't even spend 5 years of Anthony Santander. He hit 235.
Yeah, and he's 30.
He's
going
30.
the wrong
Like,
direction.
what's going on? The Royals
Right.
offered him 3 at a good per year. Like
You're going to sign a dude for a 5-year contract. You need a 24-year-old or something, not a 30-year-old.
That's
not
what
correct.
He's hitting
killed it.
235.
Because they did it, they got him, and that's how competitive the bidding was
Yeah.
for him, which is
Yeah.
insane.
All
Or
right.
they
Yeah.
were bidding against themselves, and they're completely moronic.
So we're on the over, but we'll see what happens.
And I wouldn't get like super happy on the over, but that's
No,
what
I got you.
Leaning a little bit over. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Lou. Appreciate the rundown on those guys and getting us all ready to rock with the Toronto Blue Jays prospects and future analysis for this week or this year. And we'll see what they do. We'll see how the season plays out. We'll see if they bounce back and go from there. Pruitt, you got anything else to add for them?
Nope. Appreciate it, Lou, for running us through that. So I'm going to be covering Cleveland here coming up in another 2 days or so. We got a whole lineup. We're essentially trying to release a team pretty much every day from now till opening day.
That's the goal.
So-
I got
Absolutely.
Angels coming up to record, and then we've got quite a few in the can that are going to start getting pumped out that we
Yep.
recorded. So
We've already made it through about half the teams now, as far as
Yeah.
at least doing our research and getting some of these recorded. So keep an eye out for us on.
I'm challenging the Shrewdness faithful out there, because I went on the YouTube and it said 0 views for the last 4 weeks. All right, I need at least 1 view from you folks. All right, just view one of these. Just throw me a bone, please.
I looked at them. They're up. They're trending up today. They're trending up.
Okay, all right. So the baseball stuff
So
started.
if you're-
Yeah, baseball's people are talking some baseball. It's all good.
If you're normally a Spotify guy, do Lou a solid and go out there on YouTube and watch us there.
Hey, just turn it on in the background, right, and then just go do something else. That's fine. You don't have to listen to it.
Well, you should though if you have a draft coming up.
Yeah,
'Cause we're
I mean,
getting-
but
Yeah.
they already listened on Spotify, our
Oh, that's
preferred
true.
platform.
That's true.
Now they're just getting our YouTube numbers up.
See?
Our hope, we do this for fun, obviously, having a great time with each other. We've known each other for decades, right? So it's always fun to hang out with you guys, but we do this to try to educate our viewers, give you a little bit of an edge in your upcoming fantasy draft. Just teach us some more baseball knowledge going into the 2025 season. It's always
Gamble.
more exciting to know who you're rooting for when you show up to a random game this year. So, and if you happen to throw a few dollars onto FanDuel or DraftKings, something like that, hopefully we'll give you a little bit of insight.
a little bit better about that stuff.
Yep.
For sure.
So anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for your pity listens on YouTube to help Lou out with his self-confidence, I guess. Maybe.
That's right. We need it.
That's it for now. This is the Shrewdness signing off.
Stay shrewd.
Have a great day.
Join the Patreon.